at school, which was where I first hooked up with him. Then we were working in the theatre together with the Dog Company, doing original plays by Clive. And I think it was 1985 that he first mentioned Hellraiser to me. I had already read the manuscript of The Hellbound Heart, so I knew what he was talking about. So that was it. Was just a year before we started filming Hellraiser, which was I think around about September '86. In a lot of ways, Hellraiser is of its time and not of its time. It has elements of the slasher movie about it, but it is not that. It's principally not that, I think, because of the Cenobites, which brings in a whole other level to the film. In a lot of ways, Hellraiser is a gothic horror film.
We want the man who did this.
Clive has also said that Hellraiser was Ibsen with monsters, that it's this family tragedy, family drama.
We can all be happy here.
With these things up in the attic, the bats in the belfry.
No!
I approached Hellraiser very much thinking, well, great, I'm going to play a monster in a horror film. I've always been a fan of horror movies, so to get a chance to do that was great. As the movie went on, I felt increasingly that really Pinhead is not the monster. The monsters are Julia and Frank.
Nothing personal, babe.
And Pinhead, in a lot of ways, I felt is like an impartial judge. He doesn't have an opinion whether what people are doing is good or bad. He just sits there like the demonic umpire at Wimbledon and keeps score.
Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
In the first movie, from talking to Clive, I knew that he had been human, but I didn't know who, and I didn't know when. So I didn't know whether it was last week or last month or 20 years ago or 1,000 years ago. But I knew that was there, and I did use it because I sensed very much when I first got to look at myself in the mirror with the Pinhead makeup on, amongst a lot of feelings and emotions that swept over me in about 30 seconds when I first saw that, was a tremendous sense of melancholy, which Clive punched up because in the first day of filming, he kept giving me one note, which was do less. Just take it down, do less, take it down, do less. Which is difficult as an actor. You know, we like to feel that we're out there acting for our bread. But what I was learning and what Clive was taking me to was making friends with the makeup and knowing that if my face is dead, the makeup is doing it for me. And that punched up that sense of melancholy, which I, if you pardon the expression, I pinned onto this idea that he had an awareness of having once been human, which I linked to his interest and fascination in humans, but that he wouldn't be able to remember who or anything about him, but that he had a sense of mourning, perpetual mourning for his own lost humanity.
We have such sights to show you.
Makeup early on was a 5 or 6 hour job, really, because everybody was feeling their way with it. Jack Portas, who designed and applied the makeup on Hellraiser and on Hellbound, it speeded up, so by Hellbound it was coming in at a standard 4 hours, but early on it was a long trip, and I use the word advisedly because by the end of it I was definitely in a kind of emotionally dislocated place, which was perfect for playing the character because that's exactly where he is, but it was a very strange and quasi-mystical experience to go through. And as I say, that first time that it finished and I just looked in the mirror and there's him staring back at me.
I want to hear him confess himself.
when you're in front of the camera, you're not aware of the makeup, or more accurately, the makeup is part of what you're doing. The makeup is the thing. The worst thing about the prosthetic makeup is when you're offset, and I'm anyway not one of those actors who stays in character the whole day. When I'm not in front of the camera, I've switched off and I want to chat about the football and have a cup of coffee and a cigarette, and you desperately just want to be able to lift this head off and put it over here somewhere and put your own head back on and just reclaim yourself for 10 minutes, and you can't do it. You have to carry that makeup round all day. People don't really respond to you as you. They're responding to Pinhead the whole day.
Taste our treasures.
You get into very strange places.
Oh, yes.
And you can't settle. I become a nomad. I want to be on my own, but after I've been on my own for 10 minutes, I can't cope with being on my own with this stuff, and you go out and seek other people to chat to, and after 10 minutes of that, you feel uncomfortable with that, and you go off and wander around. It takes about an hour to take it off, which I always disliked more than the putting on, which may just have been a psychological thing, that it's over. Get me out of it. I'm a human being, get me out of here. But it was a lot of poking and prodding with brushes and oil, and I didn't like it. Well, Hellraiser was my first movie. So my first day on Hellraiser was quite extraordinary. Talk about a steep learning curve. I'm getting used to this strange chain of command that goes on the movie set, and the way that works. Up to that point, I'd done 10 years of theatre, which is a very different discipline. So I was learning all that stuff, but as well, I'm dealing with the makeup and contact lenses and wearing a skirt and not tripping over, and the lenses were not to my prescription and were very dark and I couldn't see much. And I do remember the first shot was a complete nightmare because I couldn't see my marks on the floor, and beginning mark or end mark, and I couldn't see the camera. I couldn't see my eye line. It didn't feel great that first day, but I got it pretty fast, I think. Atmospheres, I think, is what I remember as much as anything else. Particularly when we got to do the full-on torture room stuff and the chains were going. And people ask me, do you get scared when you're making these films? Well, no, you don't ever really get scared, but there are moments when the atmospheres get to you. And certainly in the torture room scenes in Hellraiser, that was going full tilt.
Jesus wept.